Hello and welcome back to Westferry Times. I'm Emily, your host. You know we love digging deep into big stories here, and today, well, we're looking upwards, way up. We're tackling the UK's growing space program. It's really quite something. We're talking satellites, actual launch pads planned for Scotland. It's moving fast. And to guide us through all this, we've got a fantastic expert with us, Dr. Alex Ward, who's an astrophysicist and also advises the UK Space Agency. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Emily. It's great to be here. Really looking forward to diving into what the UK's up to in space.
Fantastic. Now, for listeners, maybe the idea of the UK having a major space program, it might seem a bit surprising, not always top of mind. So maybe you could kick us off. What are the key things driving this big push into space?
Yeah, absolutely. It really comes down to a combination of necessity and, frankly, opportunity. Space isn't just exploration anymore, it's become critical infrastructure. Think about your phones, navigation, weather forecasts, even defense systems. Vast amounts of data rely on satellites. So the UK needs, well, it wants a proper seat at that table. It's economic, but it's also geopolitical.
Right. So less about maybe the moon landings image and more practical stuff.
Exactly. While, the big exploration missions are still hugely inspiring, the immediate drive is very much about building a solid space economy right here. That means being able to launch our own satellites, design and build the hardware, make use of all that orbital data. It's about real-world benefits, profitable industries, and, yeah, strategic independence.
Okay, that makes sense. And has this been a slow build, or did something specific light the fuse recently?
Well, the last, say, 10 to 15 years have been really key. Setting up the UK Space Agency back in 2010 was a big step. It gave a central point, a strategy. And then more recently, you've got Brexit, which definitely created a stronger push for the UK to have its own capabilities, sovereign capabilities. Space is a big part of that.
Ah.
Plus, you just have this huge boom globally in the commercial space sector. So all these factors kind of converged.
Right. The timing makes sense. Now, something that definitely sounds like science fiction UK spaceports. Are these real? Are they actually happening?
They absolutely are. Maybe not quite like Star Trek yet, but yes, we've got sites being actively developed, Cornwall down south, but also up in Scotland, specifically Shetland and Sutherland. And the main job for these sites, initially at least, is launching smaller satellites. That's a huge growth area.
Small satellites, yeah, you hear that term a lot. What's the big deal with them? Why small?
Well, several reasons. They're just much, much cheaper to build compared to the big traditional ones, and faster, too. This means more organizations, more companies, even universities can actually afford to put something into orbit. And the demand is massive for better internet like Starlink, but also competitors, detailed Earth observation.
For things like climate change or...
Exactly. Climate data, monitoring agriculture, tracking ships, you name it. So the UK sees a real niche here, offering efficient launch for these smaller guys.
And launching them from here, from the UK, why is that so important? Why not just use existing launch sites elsewhere?
Control, basically, and independence. Historically, yeah, if a UK company or the government wanted a satellite launched, we'd rely on the US, maybe the European Space Agency site in French Guiana. Having our own launch pads means we control the schedule, the access. It's vital for national security, getting critical assets up when we need them.
Right. Sovereignty again.
Precisely. It boosts our strategic standing, plus it encourages the whole industry to grow right here in the UK.
There was that launch attempt from Cornwall, wasn't there? Early 2023 Virgin Orbit. What happened there?
That's right. Yeah, that one unfortunately didn't reach orbit due to an issue during the flight. But, getting to the point of even attempting an orbital launch from UK soil was a massive achievement in itself. Space launch is hard, really hard. Setbacks are frankly part of learning and innovating in this field. It was a valuable experience.
So the plans haven't stopped.
Oh, not at all. More launches are definitely being planned from the UK sites, looking ahead to 2025 and beyond. The momentum's still there.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit to the satellites themselves. The UK builds these things too, right? What's our expertise there?
We're actually world leaders in small satellite design and manufacturing. That's a real strength. You've got companies like Surrey Satellite Technology or SSTL, who've been pioneers for decades. And OneWeb is another great example.
OneWeb, they're the ones doing the big internet constellation.
That's them, building this huge network of satellites for global broadband. A lot of that technology and the satellite manufacturing happens right here.
So for people listening, what kind of jobs are these UK satellites actually doing up there?
Oh, huge range. We touched on Earth observation, so that's weather forecasting, helping farmers manage crops, tracking deforestation, flood monitoring. Then you've got Navigation signals contributing to systems like GPS. We've got satellites specifically monitoring climate change indicators, ice melt, sea level.
Really specific stuff.
Yeah, like tracking illegal fishing boats, which is surprisingly effective from orbit.
Hmm.
And then, of course, there are crucial defense and intelligence applications for national security.
It really underlines how space isn't just out there, it's about managing things down here on Earth much better.
Absolutely. It gives us this incredible perspective, this wealth of data that we just can't get any other way.
Hmm.
It's vital for tackling big challenges, environment, disasters, communications, resource management.
And you mentioned national security. How big a factor is that in this whole push? Space seems like it could be, well, contested territory these days.
It is, increasingly so. Space isn't the peaceful vacuum it might once have seemed. Many nations have interests and capabilities there. So for the UK, national security definitely means having reliable eyes and ears in space, communication systems that are secure, and that means satellites that can be protected, the ability to launch replacements if needed, hence the spaceports and secure ways to handle all that data. It's a critical domain.
Okay, let's look outwards again for a moment. What about pure space science, exploration? Is the UK just watching, or are we getting our hands dirty?
Oh, we're definitely involved. It's kind of a dual role. We do a lot of observation, building instruments for telescopes and things, but we're also a very significant partner in the European Space Agency, ESA. That's our main route for participating in big international exploration missions.
So through ESA, UK scientists and engineers are involved in what kind of missions?
All sorts. We've had major roles in missions to Mars, probes going to Mercury, contributions to missions studying the sun, and looking ahead, there's significant UK involvement in missions planned for the moon and for studying planets outside our solar system, exoplanets.
Is there one specific mission you could point to as a big UK contribution?
Yeah, a great example is the Rosalind Franklin rover, part of ESA's ExoMars program. A huge chunk of that rover, its design and key instruments, was built in the UK. Its mission is literally to drill beneath the Martian surface and look for signs of life, past or present.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool.
It is. And like I said, UK tech is also heading to the moon on upcoming missions helping study exoplanets. We're really embedded in that cutting-edge science.
And what about astronauts? Tim Peake was obviously huge news back in 2016. Are we going to see more Brits in space?
That's definitely the hope and the push. Tim Peake's mission was fantastic for inspiring people, especially kids. There's a real effort now to support the next generation of UK astronauts, both through ESA selection processes and potentially through the growing commercial spaceflight opportunities, too.
It sounds like the talent base is definitely here.
Without a doubt. We have world-class people in our universities, our research labs, our engineering firms, really innovative work happening. The challenge, as always, is ensuring there's enough funding and visibility to keep that talent here and allow it to flourish.
Which brings us neatly to the economics. We talked about the sector growing. Can you put some numbers on that? How big is the UK space economy now?
Yeah, the latest figures show it's worth over, I think, £17 billion a year to the UK economy. And it supports something like 45,000 jobs, maybe more now, right across the country.
That's pretty substantial.
It is, and it's growing fast.
Yep.
The government has this ambitious target. They want the UK to capture 10% of the global space market by 2030. That's a big jump.
Wow. Where's that growth coming from? Is it the big established companies or?
A lot of the real dynamism is coming from startups and smaller companies, the SMEs. You see companies like Skyrora and Orbex in Scotland working on greener, more sustainable launch rockets, very innovative, or Astroscale, which has a UK base, tackling the really important problem of space debris, like space kerchers.
Space kerchers. I like that.
Yeah, so it's a really vibrant scene, lots of new ideas. People sometimes talk about sort of Silicon Space Valley emerging in parts of the UK.
And is the money following? Is investment coming into these space startups?
It is increasingly. Venture capital is definitely taking more notice, especially in areas like satellite data services, climate tech, using space data, and building new space infrastructure. But space is expensive, so those public-private partnerships, government support, alongside private investment, they're still really crucial to get big projects off the ground, literally.
So if someone's listening now, maybe thinking about their career, what kind of jobs are actually out there? Is it all rocket science?
Not at all. That's a key message. Yes, we need brilliant engineers and scientists, absolutely. But the sector also desperately needs people in policy, helping shape the rules. We need data scientists who can make sense of all the information coming down from satellites. Software developers are critical for the ground systems, Designers for hardware, for user interfaces, even ethicists thinking about the implications of what we do in space.
Oh,
It's incredibly broad,
that's really interesting. A much wider range of skills than you might first think.
definitely.
Okay, but it can't all be smooth sailing. What are the big hurdles, the challenges the UK space sector faces?
Yeah, there are definitely challenges. Funding is always one. While it's growing, the UK's overall space budget is still, significantly smaller than the US or China, even some European neighbors. Regulation is another. Getting the rules right so that they encourage innovation and attract companies, especially launch companies, without compromising safety. It's a tricky balance.
It needs to be agile, I suppose.
Exactly. Agile and clear. And the third one I'd mention is probably public awareness. Just making sure people understand why this is important, why it's worth investing in, that public support is vital.
And you mentioned space debris earlier with Astroscale. Sustainability in space, that seems like a growing concern globally.
Hugely important.
Yeah.
And yes, the UK is actually taking a lead here, which is great. We can't just keep launching things indefinitely without thinking about the consequences. Low Earth orbit is already getting crowded, and space junk is a real hazard. So the UK has been very active in pushing for international guidelines on responsible behavior in space, on debris mitigation. But it needs everyone to cooperate.
It's like the environmental movement, but for orbit.
Kind of, yeah. We need to be good stewards of that environment, too.
So bringing it all together then, the big question, can the UK realistically become a sort of major player in space, a real space power?
I think major player is achievable, yes. I'm optimistic. But it depends on keeping that investment going in the talent, the technology, the infrastructure, like the spaceports. It's probably not about trying to be NASA. The scale is different. But the ambition is perhaps to be Europe's go-to place for space innovation, particularly in small satellites, launch services, and using satellite data. A specialist hub, if you like.
A focused ambition, that makes sense. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for walking us through everything from rural Scotland right up to low Earth orbit and back again.
It's been a real pleasure. It's an exciting time for the UK in space, and lots more development to come, so watch this space, as they say.
We certainly will. And thanks to all of you for tuning into this Westferry Times deep dive. If you enjoyed our journey into the UK space sector, please do subscribe or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And maybe leave us a 5-star rating if you can. It really does help other people find the show. Feel free to share this chat with anyone you think might find Britain's growing space ambitions interesting. Until our next deep dive, goodbye, and, well, keep your curiosity sky high.